All right, everyone, welcome to another week. Parshat Vayeitzei. Very, very good Parshat. Now we're talking about the story of Yaakov. Look at the synopsis up on the screen. So basically, this week's Torah portion, we learn about the story that Jacob runs away from his brother Esav. They had the whole story with the blessings. With your permission, I left the air conditioner off, by the way. Okay.
It doesn't have any heat either.
No, yeah, relax. This is Florida. Now you're just talking crazy. So he has to run away. He says he goes out from Beersheba and he goes to Haran. Haran is where his mother Rivka is originally from, and he meets Rivka's brother Lavan, and Lavan says, welcomes him in. He's a refugee. Lavan first thought that Yaakov had money, because he remembered that when Avram sent Eliezer, he sent them with tons of money.
Right.
So he says, you came with no money, so you're pulling the family card. We just got rid of the family. They all left. Actually, almost all got. They all came for the bar mitzvah. So he said, all right. So what's your price? So Lavan had two daughters. One was named Leah. The older one was Leah. The younger one was Rachel. Yaakov fancied Rachel, and he said he wanted to work for Rachel. What happened was Lavan pulled the fast one because why? A few reasons. But when Yaakov worked for him, Lavan realized that his business, his shepherding business, whatever he put his hands in, was blessed with tremendous returns, not natural returns, and he realized it was in the merit of Yaakov. So he said, if I let Yaakov go, then I'll lose it. So what did he do? The night of the wedding, he takes Leah, right?
There's a switch.
And
Switcheroo.
A real bait and switch.
Oh, he's a real underhanded guy anyway, so.
Yeah, a real bait and switch.
Why did they make him work for 7 years? What's the significance
That
of
was
7?
That was the.
Was it because of the 7 days, or the
I don't know.
number has no?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sorry. What am I getting? Sorry, this shouldn't be connected to. I hope. Oh shoot! I
Yeah, let's do this so they can sit together.
Okay, so I hope I'm not sure if I'm connected here or not, because I was connected to that phone. So Ariel's here.
Yeah.
Wow. So here we are. This is the moral dilemma we're going to discuss tonight. So let's start with a question. Okay, let's say you know a guy, and you are trying to convince this guy to come to Chabad. You say, no, I know this great synagogue, great community, awesome rabbi.
Awesome. As a matter of fact, he was awful once, but we made him awesome.
Exactly. I didn't say why. Obviously, the rabbi is awesome because of the community. And the guy says, I don't feel comfortable going to the synagogue because I don't know how to read Hebrew. I'll only go if you learn with me. And you said, you're a nice person. You say, okay, I'll give you it. The only time I have available is Tuesday at 7:30. Like Tuesday 7:30, that's when I learn Torah studies with my awesome, and a few more times, awesome rabbi. So the question is, what do? Do you learn with the guy, or this is the scenario on page 90? There's a question, or do you say, listen here, Tuesday night, that's my learning time. I'm happy to learn with you a different time. Suggest a different time, or let me know when times come available. Or do you say no? All right, we'll start with you, because you always have the answers. We know at home you don't get an opinion, so we allow you to have an opinion here. I know, I'm married too.
When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
I think that the latter of the either or, saying, look, this is my time with my rabbi that I learned, and there's 24 other hours in the day. Come on, maybe we can come to some kind of agreement of a time that we could learn together.
Compromise is a dirty word. It's not the. Hey Ben, what do you think? I'm kidding around. What say you?
Tuesday 7:30. It's Tuesday 7:30.
Well, now what about the other guy? But if you never learn with him, then he'll never come to show. I mean, he's using you as the gateway to come to show, to explore his Judaism more. If he doesn't learn with you, he's intimidated. You know, the rabbi is too religious. You know what I'm saying? He's not normal. He's he's one of those fanatics. I can't.
Why can't he come and learn at the same time?
He wants to learn Hebrew. I'm saying he wants to learn something.
Or something.
So this is the moral dilemma. Whose spiritual growth comes first? You or him? It's a very valid question. It's not like you're sitting there, hey, 7:30, the Rangers are on. I'm sorry, I would, but I can't. The Rangers, but or the Yankees. But Ellen, what do you say?
If it's the Yankees, there would be no choice at all. To heck with them.
Yeah.
They lost the World Series, so.
All right. Hey.
Red Sox.
This is not the month of Av where we bring up sad news, okay? Relax.
It's always sad
So
to
you go and learn with the fellow once or twice, and you kind of entice him into feeling that this is something he really wants, and then you change the time.
We change that. All right, there you go. You hook him, bait and switch. You just like lava and bait and switches. You fit perfectly. You'd get along swimmingly.
Wasn't okay. Haran was, in Abraham's view, had the people there had better character, even though they still worshipped idols.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously not all of them had better character, because if they did,
Yeah.
Laban would have made
No,
the
but-
bait and switch.
Right. Yeah, but Yitzchak doesn't tell Yaakov to go marry Lavan. He said to marry Lavan's daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wait, wasn't it tradition that the older daughter has to get married before the younger?
That's a made-up tradition.
Made-up tradition?
That's something. Usually the older daughter is ready for marriage first, but the older daughter doesn't have to get married
But
before.
back then, wasn't that?
No, Lavan just told that to Yaakov. He made us some excuse. Just use Kyle salesman. Oh, that's because actually my friend sent me a clip of a contract. That's what they do. They start making up terms and reason. It's great. I'll send it to you afterwards. Okay, so like we said, this course is based on Rashi. And this time, the class is not going to be what Rashi says. It's what Rashi doesn't say. That's going to be the question. And if you look on page 90, you have the two rules of Rashi that we're going to be applying in this week's class. Rule number one, if there's a difficulty in the text that would bother a 5-year-old, Rashi addresses it. If it doesn't, Rashi doesn't bother saying anything. If Rashi does not address it, it can mean two things. Either it's not a question, or the answer is obvious based on what Rashi said in previous comments. Rashi expects the reader to have in mind everything he said, explained.
Never forget anything.
Never forget anything. Okay. So, text 1a, we begin. Lavan has two daughters, and the older one was Leah, and the younger one was Rachel, and Yaakov, the younger son, was going to marry Rachel, and everyone said the older daughter Leah is going to marry the older son Esav, and he worked for 7 years, and it was in the evening, and Lavan switched, and then Yaakov says, hey, I want to marry Rachel. So Yaakov says, wait a week, Sheva Brachas. This is where we learn that Sheva Brachas is a week. This is where we learn also the concept of Ev Ma'arv and Simcha B'Simcha. We don't mix two Simchas together. You can't have two siblings get married in the same week. You need to have at least a week. We learn from here. This was actually an applicable scenario in my family. Had two brothers get engaged 2 weeks apart from each other. One to a New Yorker, one to a French girl. And so I don't know the English dates exactly, but one son got married on the 18th of Adar in Brooklyn, New York. The next brother got married 27th of Adar in Paris. Yeah. I'll make matters crazy. This on the 17th of Adar, my nephew was born. So that Shabbos, we had a Shalom Zachar, a Sheva Brachas, an Afruf. It was a wild Shabbos. Yeah, it was crazy. And then, by the way, this is 2 weeks before Pesach, man. So just, it's always right before Pesach. So Lavan tells Yaakov, wait a week, marry Rachel, and then you'll work another 7 years. Now the obvious problem is a man biblically a man is allowed to have 2 wives. So this is not a subject for tonight, but it's important to remember that the rabbis can't banish, uproot biblical law. What they can say is that we don't think it's healthy to practice this way, so don't. Not because it doesn't apply anymore, it's because we say it's not healthy. So 1,000 years ago, there was a rabbi, his name, Ashkenazic rabbi, his name was Rabbeinu Gershom. You ever heard him? It's called Rabbeinu Gershom. He lived in Mainz, Germany, I believe. He is considered the father of Ashkenazic Jewry. A lot of the Ashkenazic practices that we have now come from him. Now he instituted a bunch of practices that are still applied today. One of them is he outlawed polygamy, rabbinically. Okay, so according to the Torah, a man is allowed to marry 2 women. What he's not allowed to marry, so you see text number 2 is he's not allowed to marry 2 sisters. Okay, so you see text number 2. A man cannot marry a second wife who's a sister while the first wife is alive. He could marry the sister after if his first wife dies. He could marry her sister. You just can't marry them both while they're alive. Now, why is that a question? You have something to say, Ed?
No, I'm just thinking of my cousin Stevie. He married a girl, and the girl passed away, and then he married her twin sister.
Okay, so according to the Torah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
He could be good thing for him. He didn't know the difference. They both look the same.
This is where we share family secrets.
By the way, on camera, you want me to get you? Everything you say will be held against you. So now there's a precept, a tradition. I mean, it's brought down in many places. So we have various biblical references for this. That the rabbis, that our forefathers, our patriarchs, they kept the Torah before Mount Sinai. So meaning the Jewish people abiding by the precepts and the laws in the Torah don't begin at Mount Sinai. Now what happened? So why is Mount Sinai special? That's not a question for now. But we have like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov ate matzah on Pesach, right? We had the idea that Avram waited for Milah. We spoke about this. So now the obvious question is, which you see on the screen, if Yaakov kept the Torah before the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the event on Mount Sinai, this is not they even kept rabbinical laws. So then how could Yaakov clearly violate what it says here, that a man is not allowed to marry two sisters? So far as the question, so far, and by the way, how do we know that they kept the Torah? If you see in text 3. Text 3, Hashem tells Yitzchak that why he loves Avram, or why he's going to bless Yitzchak. He says, because your father Avram listened to my voice and he watched, and Vayishmar Meshmarti, and he kept my Meshmarti, he kept my charge. He kept my, what does that mean? You look at text 3b, it means he kept away from what I consider an Avera in the Torah. And you see, not only that, he kept away even from something like what the rabbis outlawed. Okay, there's certain laws the Torah says. Okay, in this, for example, he gives example of illicit relationships. But then there are preventative measures. For example, in illicit relationships, the rabbis put in place, like the law of yichud. Familiar? You know what yichud is? Yichud means being alone. According to the Torah, a man and a woman are allowed to be alone. You just can't sleep together. But the rabbi said, okay, then 1 + 1 = 3. If a man and a woman are alone, then the chances are something might happen. So they outlawed being alone. They outlawed yichud. There's actually a great story. I told the story before, but it's such a great story. There was a chassid of the Mittel Rebbe, and at Tzemach Tzedek, his name was a Hill Parshat. He was a great man. He was such a great man that the Tzemach Tzedek called him a half a chassid. When they asked him why he's a half a chassid, it's because the other half is tzaddik and Rebbe. That's how great he was. So when he was an older man, he had one of the young yeshiva students helping him out in the house, whatever. Then once a week, whatever, he would have a Gentile woman, we use in the vernacular shiksa, to come clean, right? And I grew up, the cleaning lady was called the shiksa. That's what it was, not like what people think it means. So one time the young yeshiva student asked Rabbi Hillel Parachik, I need to go run some errands. Is it okay? So sure. So he goes, he comes back, he sees Hillel Parachik standing outside. So he asks him, says, Rebbe, so why are you standing outside? He said, because of yichud. You're not allowed to be alone with a woman. So the young yeshiva student said, Rabbi, with all due respect, I mean, you're old, and she's ugly.
Hence the line with the way he sees and the way she looks. It's a perfect match.
Listen. So he answered her. He answered him. Rabbi Parcha answered the bacher. He said, with my yitzhahara, very soon I'll be young and she'll be pretty. So the concept of yichud. And Avram even kept the laws of yichud. So how could Yaakov go and marry two sisters? Now, the shocking part is not only Yaakov did it. You would expect Rashi would address, anyone reading this would say, when Yaakov marries Rachel, the fact that he got stuck with Leah, okay, he got stuck with Leah, you got married, you didn't marry the woman you wanted. Then you go a week later and you marry Rachel in clear violation of Torah law. And Rashi doesn't say anything. Like, isn't Rashi the commentator of the Torah? Like, where is he? If you're not going to speak now, like, forever hold your peace, right? I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense. Where's Rashi? By the way, Ava got lost in the parking lot?
I was on a phone call.
Oh, okay. That's why we made the parking lot in a circle. This way you can't get lost.
But did you turn the lights on bright?
Yeah. So, in the Rebbe, in the talk, the Rebbe addresses this question. He puts forth a bunch of answers and he rejects all of them. For example, he said that the biblical law only applied in Eretz Yisrael, not in Haran. But Rashi holds that Rashi doesn't agree with the Rambam. Rashi holds that Yaakov kept all the mitzvahs also in Haran. Another answer is that the law was only from sisters from the father's side, not the mother. So there's an opinion that Rachel and Leah didn't have the same mother. Same father, love him, not the same mother. But the Rebbe goes through a bunch of questions and he rejects them. Okay. So let's get into two kinds of code of conduct. Okay, this is going to help answer the law. There are two types of law. One is binding law, whether you like it or not. Right? That's the law of the land. It's not up to society to accept it, whether society likes it. Right? If Congress passes a law that you can abuse animals, it's still wrong. You still can't do it, right? Because it's one of the 7 Noahide laws, right? Then there's then there's code of conduct, maybe, in better words, that society abides by or understands it to be right. If you don't, you look down upon, but you didn't necessarily violate. It's not as binding. Does that make sense? So you have so for example, you have the 7 Noahide laws. Now why do I say this? Is because this is before the giving of the Torah, right? So if Yaakov can't violate any of the 7 Noahide laws. In fact, the violation of the 7 Noahide laws is one of the premises Yaakov's sons, Shimon and Levi, use to wipe out the city of Shechem. In next week's Torah portion, we read how Dinah was kidnapped and violated by Shechem. And Shimon and Levi, they decide they're going to wipe out the whole city. The famous question is, you go kill Shechem, fine, but why do you kill the whole city? So sexual impropriety was against one of the 7 Noahide laws, and harboring a criminal. I mean, one of the 7 Noahide laws is you have to have courts of justice. The fact that they didn't bring him to justice was a violation. So that's why the whole city was anyway. So you see text number 4. So you have binding laws and social norms. So you see, like you see on the screen, the binding laws are legally enforceable. Social norms are optional, but not legally. Not legally. I'll go back. I want to see. I want you guys to see that. Come, hold on. Sorry. I read your heads. There you go. So the binding laws, like you see, text number 4, are the 7 Noahide laws. Like you see, the 6 things that Adam was commanded, and then the seventh, which is cruelty to animals. It's called don't eat flesh with its life. I mean, you can't tear off a limb from an animal and eat it. Why Noah, not Adam? Because until Noah, people were not allowed to eat animals. Only when God allowed the consumption of meat did he add that 6th law about cruelty to animals. Those are the 7 commandments. Okay, that everyone has to abide by. That's legally enforceable, and you have no choice. Then you have another one. So, for example, honoring your parents. Now, us after the giving of the Torah, it's a law. You have to honor your parents. It's not optional. I was actually talking with someone. I was learning with someone today. He said, when you pray, you're calling out to God like Father, Father. When you learn Torah, it's a much more a closer relationship. Not like kids, and you call them, and they answer from the room. What? So I said, I remember when I was a kid, if my mother called us from downstairs and we answer from upstairs, what? My father would say, when your mother calls, you come. You don't call what, answer what from upstairs, right? That's it's different. But so now, after the giving of the Torah, honoring your parents is binding. But before, it was considered a societal norm, but it's not. You don't have to. So we find a very interesting idea. This is quoted in text number 5, that at the end of Parshat Noach, we read how Avram is born, and he marries Sarah or Sarai at that point, and he moves with his family, his father and his family, from Ur Kasdim to Haran, and then the end of the parsha tells us how Terach dies. Now, and then Parshas Lech Lecha, the 3rd parsha in Genesis, says that God speaks to Avram and says, "Leave Haran, go to the land of Canaan." Now, if you're reading the parsha, you think that Terach died before God told him to leave Haran to the land of Canaan. But in truth, that's not true. Terach was 70 when Avram was born. Avram is 75 when God tells him to leave Haran. That means Terach was still alive, because Terach lived till 190. He was 145 at this point. So why did the Torah put Terach's death in the previous portion? So we look at text number 5, in order that it doesn't look it doesn't look good that Avram didn't honor his father, even though really he didn't have to, because the same guy who told you to honor your father told him to leave Haran, right? He wasn't obligated to honor his father. God told him to leave, but still, there are always people, naysayers, nitpickers. Always people want to find problems. You shouldn't have somebody who's giving. Who's going to say that Avram was a bad guy, right? So and we find a similar idea. So when in the 7 Noahide laws, one of them is illicit immoral relationship. The question is what did Shechem did to Dinah, was that part of it, or was that common law, or a binding law? Because when Yaakov confronts Shimon and Levi, he says, "Hey, you guys went and destroyed the city. What are you guys thinking?" So they say, "We think we're going to allow, someone to take a Jewish girl and violate her?" Says it's just not done, just not done in Yaakov's family, just not done in society. So if you look at Rashi text number 6, it seems that was a common law. He says rape was prescribed when the nations adopted laws against all illicit relationship as a result of the flood. What happened was that that why did God destroy the world with the flood? Because humanity we're destroying each other, right? With thievery, with immoral relationships, and they said, okay, guys, we got to stop. So they took upon themselves, unlike like what Mel Brooks says, rape, murder, arson, rape, right? No good. Yeah. You have to stop it. So now, on the other hand, you have other law, right? You have other law like you choose to do. I remember that when we were running the camp. I don't know. At some point, like 7 or 8 kids got sick, stomach bug. Some of them threw up once. There was one girl threw up 7 times, whatever it is. So she was very health conscious. She didn't eat any junk, and she would exercise, and she was throwing up. So I said to her, I said, listen, you have to drink Gatorade. You need electrolytes in your body. I can't. I'm allergic to food coloring. I said, you can't. You don't want to. No, I can't. So I know what to do. I said, listen, you want me to bring you to a hospital in the middle of nowhere, Argentina? You have to realize nowhere, Argentina is much worse than nowhere, United States. Nowhere, Argentina means you're nowhere. And I don't know. We took them to a clinic in the middle of nowhere. There was mold on the ceiling and everything else. The girls were like, these are American spoiled girls. What is this place? Oh, sure, there's a medical clinic. Are you sure? The place looked like it was dilapidated. Anyway, so I called the mother, and I said, this is this situation. Rivka is, she's dehydrated. She looks like she's going to pass out. I told her I have Gatorade, but she doesn't want to drink it because she says she's allergic. So she's not allergic. Put her on the phone. And the mother said, you have to drink it. I don't like food coloring and everything else. I don't care you don't like food coloring. You have to drink it. There's certain things you can't do, certain things you don't want to do. Just because you don't want to do this, sometimes you have to do it, right? Mm-hmm. You can't make what you want like the standard. Like we had another problem in the camp. There were certain girls that are really celiac, and certain girls were health conscious. So we ordered a certain amount of food for the celiac girls, and the other I'm also gluten-free, and we didn't have enough gluten-free. The caterer was telling us, I don't know, either 3 girls, 5 girls, 7 girls, and every day. And one day a girl decided she's allergic to carrots, and one day she's allergic to corn, one day to tomatoes. One girl was driving me crazy, right? So
Are you doing that again this summer?
Yeah, but this time actually I got this idea from Sarah Seminary. You want a special diet, you need to bring me a note from a doctor. I'm not just going to acquiesce to your request because you say so. It's absolute chaos. These 15, 16-year-old American brats.
I'm from LA.
No, New York also. There's one girl from New York. She was like the brattiest, most know-it-all, condescending. There's not very many people I wanted to slap. This girl, man, she got on the mess again. She came into the hotel one day and she says, it wasn't during mealtime, into the lobby. And this was the kosher hotel we stayed at. He said, do you have any glass or ceramic cups? I'm like, I don't know, I can ask. I said, why? I said, I want to drink tea. So here's a styrofoam cup. Make yourself a tea. It's like, you crazy? What I say? What's wrong? It's styrofoam. Yeah. It's like, looks at me like rolling her eyes. All the way around the skull. Like, styrofoam causes cancer. I'm like, yeah, if you drink like 1 billion cups. So she says to me, look, roll her eyes all the way. And 1 billion people die of cancer every day. I'm like, okay, I can't. I had to go outside, take a breather. It's like, so meaning, if you have a code of conduct, it could be a noble and a good code of conduct, but never confuse what you want to do, but what you have to do. Sometimes what you want to do has to give way with what you have to do. So for example, let's say you decide that you are environmentalist, yeah, and you don't drive a gas guzzler, like a fossil fuel, and your wife goes into labor, and your car doesn't have a charge, and the only car available is your neighbor's Trump pickup Ford 350 with spitting out. You say, well, sorry. Honey, you're just going to have the baby at home because, well, obviously not. I'll tell you a personal story. My second brother, Dovi, was born on Shabbos. So my parents used to live, it was like a 10, 15, not 10 more, 10, 15 blocks from the hospital. So my father sent my mother in the ambulance, and he walked. So the next day he comes to shul. No, my father doesn't miss shul for nothing. Baby, no baby. All right. My father comes to shul and he goes to the rabbi of the community, and he says, last night my wife had a baby. I don't know why he said it or what context he said it. He mentioned that he sent my mother in the ambulance and he walked to the hospital. He thought that'd be better. The rabbi says, idiot! Shaita, you fool! What do you mean? Your wife goes into the hospital having a baby. You go into the ambulance with her. What use? Like wanna, right? So sometimes these codes of context that are noble. Not only we decide, society agrees are noble, but they have to give way to what really is important. You see, what Yaakov Helzer says. I'm behind. Says it says in text number 7. It says, often reminded rabbis who serve the halachic decisors to know which stringencies are. Something happened to the. Is it stop recording?
No, it's still recording.
Because I'm getting something in my ear. And I don't really know which phone it's connected to. All right, anyway. It's talking to me for some reason.
Oh, do you have these experiences often?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Like the old joke. A guy goes to the psychiatrist and says, I have a problem. I talk to God. The guy says, you're completely normal. Billions of people speak to God. But he gives him his card. He says, but I thought you said I'm normal. I said, you are, but just in case God answers back. It says, meaning the idea of a rabbi isn't just to say everything's not kosher and that's it. The idea of a rabbi is to figure out when you're allowed to be stringent and when you're allowed to be lenient. The real rabbi, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but the real rabbi knows how to be lenient. Anyone can be strict. Anyone could just say, this is the law, goodbye. I don't know if I shared this anecdote with you before, that when I was learning to be a rabbi,
it's easy to be arbitrary.
Right. And when I was learning to get smicha, a rabbinical degree, and you learn the laws of meat and milk, and it's so technical of the spoons, all the way in the gravy, you're out how much the cover is. So I went to the rabbi. I said, what the heck with all this? I said, what's the problem? Your pot? The rabbi, here's $30. Buy yourself a new pot. Leave me alone. What are you driving me crazy as a rabbi for? All these nitpicky details. So my rabbi said, I'll answer you with an anecdote. He says, once a rabbi, he was traveling, and he came to a town, and he saw that the rabbi in the town was a total ignoramus. So he said, so in the olden days, now we have a Roma kosher central. But in the olden days, when a person would have a chicken or an animal slaughtered, they would bring it to the rabbi to see, is it good or not. Mm-hmm. So usually the sheikhet would say, but if you had a question, you go to the rabbi. So he said, the rabbi asked the hometown rabbi, so what do you say when you have a question? I'm very stringent in these matters. I always say treif. I always say not kosher. So the visiting rabbi said, let me tell you a story. So once a rabbi walking in the forest, and he came to a house with a mezuzah, and he sees a Jewish guy there, religious guy. He says, what do you do for meat? He says, I slaughter myself. He said, but what if you're not sure? He says, which rabbi do you ask? He says, it's simple. It says in the Torah, not kosher meat, you give to the dog. So I'm not sure, I put the meat in front of the dog. If the dog eats it, then I know it's not kosher. So the visiting rabbi tells the hometown rabbi, listen, idiot. You use a much different word. Every shmender can say it's treif. The art of the rabbi is to say it's kosher, to find a reason why you shouldn't waste Jewish people's money. That's the you know what I'm saying. That's the you should know how to sort of. So now let's get back into our story. The patriarchs, they voluntarily adopted all of the laws of the Torah. That was their norm, right? Now, were the patriarchs obligated to do all those laws? No, right? They weren't obligated. The patriarchs were only obligated by the 7 Noahide laws. Those are the laws of humanity. All the other laws, like I mentioned earlier, eating matzah on Pesach. They had to eat matzah on Pesach. No, this week's parsha, there's a Kabbalistic reference that Yaakov put on tefillin. It says with the sheep, stripes. It says Kabbalah learns out. It's very interesting. I had the book in the back. That the stripes are he would put sticks on his hands for stripes, black and white, for tefillin. That obviously wasn't mandatory. That was voluntary. Before giving a Torah, was honesty mandatory or optional?
Was what?
Was honesty common law or binding law? Binding law meaning from God.
No.
It's common law, right? Humanity, society decided. So the fact that Lavan, we see over here, and how do we know that it was common law? Because when in the next morning we see text number 8, when Yaakov wakes up in the morning and sees that it's Leah, not Rachel, what does he say to Lavan? Hey, why did you cheat me? That was his. Why did you deceive me? So obviously, deception wasn't acceptable as common law. So you see, the Rebbe explains. Text 9a. Here we go. Hold on a second. Text 9a. The Rebbe says one of the norms adopted by the nations was to refrain from deception. This is why Yaakov says, "Why did you deceive me?" Now, because it was accepted as common law, Lavan had to abide by it. So Lavan didn't just say, "Too bad." Lavan said, "Oh, he made up some." Said in the beginning of the class. Lavan said, "Oh no, because in our space we don't let the younger sister get married before. That's some kind of he made up some, in our shul, when I did the wedding in Israel. I'm a Chabad guy. I know mostly Chabad weddings. So when the people are not religious, I just do it my way. No one knows the difference, right? No, I mean, I do the Chabad way. No one knows any other tradition. But here I came, and there was like half religious, but none of them were Chabad. So I was trying to balance it, and at the end of the wedding, he's saying, Imesh Kachech Yerushalayim. Or some people say the line, from it's chapter 142 of Tehillim. If I forget Jerusalem, I should forget my right hand, right? So now there's a guy that 20 years ago made a song, so now they play it, or people sing it. But here I was under the chuppah all by myself. I wasn't going to sing. I'm not a singer, right? So
You were not a singer.
one of the things I don't do, I have to have some humility, right? So I started saying the line, and everyone said it together, right? So someone went over to one of the religious relatives and said, "What, they don't sing? In America, that's not the custom, right?" She didn't know, so she just made up some answer. And all the relatives like, oh okay. Like we were in some small village next to Netanya. No one knew the difference. Oh, okay, these people came to the wedding, white shirts and sandals. That's the way they are in Israel, right? So the loved one just came up. He was put on the spot. I don't know. The younger sister doesn't get married before the older sister. It was some garbage. So now we have a problem. Now Yaakov is faced with a problem. You have his personal, voluntary acceptance of Torah law. The marrying two sisters is a problem after the giving of Torah at Sinai, not before, right? It was Yaakov who chose to abide by the Torah laws. Right? Right.
Yes.
Honesty, deception was common law. Who has to give way? Yaakov's personal acceptance of Torah law? I mean, that's going to be in the future, or common law? No.
I think
Common law has to give way.
no.
No. Common law trumps.
Yeah.
So this is what the Rebbe says. In the Arabic says, it's a fascinating answer. Yaakov had no choice to marry Rachel because he already promised Rachel he was going to marry her, right? He gave the signs and everything else, and Rachel was going to be devastated, right? Yaakov loved Rachel, Rachel loved Yaakov, right? And Yaakov could just go to Rachel and say, "Listen, you're out of luck because I took it upon myself to to act in a certain way. It doesn't work that way. In Sender answer, huh?
I hate to ask you a question,
Go ahead.
but maybe I'm confused on this. Abraham, he knew the Torah?
Yes.
Okay. And Jacob knew the Torah.
Yeah.
Isaac knew the Torah. And there's a dichotomy in terms of there's a common law and then there's a Torah law.
Well, the question was, how could Yaakov marry two sisters if he was abiding by the Torah law?
Yeah.
That's the answer we're trying to say. That's one of the questions.
But
And also, why didn't
that's-
Rashi say anything?
Right, but that's really not my question. My question is, why is it that, I mean, it seems that you almost have a choice. Well, in this circumstance, I'm going to go by common law. This circumstance, I'm going to go by Torah law. Why isn't it more arbitrary?
Because it was before
This
the
is-
it was
you knew
before the
Torah,
giving.
These are the laws of the Torah. You
Yeah,
have
but
to
the Torah
abide
wasn't
by
a given. The doing the Torah law was an opt in, opt out. See, these days we don't have an opt out clause. We can't opt out.
How did they know the Torah?
Oh, that's a different question. How they knew the
Is
Torah?
that kind of mystical?
No, yeah, it is. Yeah, okay. By how they knew, yeah. So you see, this is what the Rebbe answers in text 9b. Because Yaakov already promised Rachel that he was going to marry her, to not keeping his pledge would have been deception, which he can't do because the society had already accepted upon themselves. And some people actually say that deception is really part of the 7 Noahide laws. It's one of the 7 Noahide laws is thievery. You can't steal. So whether it is or not. So he hit the main word to underline is the second word of the second paragraph. His personal choice to observe the non-binding stringency of do not take a woman and a sister cannot overrule the prohibition against the deception. So now we know why Yaakov did it. Now, why didn't Rashi say anything? So he says it's very it's very easy. Why? Because Rashi doesn't say anything is because based on the fact that the verse clearly said, "Why did you deceive me? Why did you cheat me?" That we know that lying is wrong. So now, how could Yaakov turn around to Rachel? So Rashi says, "I have to explain that to you. You should know based on the verse." That Yaakov couldn't apply to Rachel. The focus over here is that you can't put your own spiritual, advancement over. You can't step on another person to advance yourself spiritually. There's a famous story. I don't know if you guys have been to my house for Pesach before, but I don't know if you noticed that we're very careful not to make the matzah wet. If you notice, we are. But if you notice, we don't enforce it to other people. Because a lot of people are not careful. It's a Chassidic stringency. It's not a law. It's a Chassidic stringency. I mean, when I grew up in the house, we were fanatical about it. We couldn't eat matzah over the table. I had to eat back. You couldn't pass matzah over the table. If you want to know what Superman laser eyes, pass matzah over the table, you get it from my father, right?
What happened if you got crumbs on the table? Was that a problem?
Yeah.
That was a problem.
Yeah. So now what? So one time by the previous Rebbe was making a seder, and the previous Rebbe was very different than our Rebbe. But our Rebbe was more of like aloof. He's the melech, he's the king. We're the subjects. He's more distant. He was more of the Frierdiker Rebbe was more of a homey person. He sat around. So once by the previous Rebbe seder, he had a guy who was not Chabad. And he had beet soup or something. So what did the guy do? He took his matzah. The people at the seder went nuts because he wanted the Rebbe's seder to be the most special, holy, kosher, and the guy dips it. And Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Guys, it's better that the matzah turns red than the person should turn red." Mm-hmm. That's a very, very important idea. And the Rebbe says this is what Rashi is trying to teach us over here by not saying it. Because sometimes people get so caught up in their own religiosity that they forget that they're pushing. You're stepping on someone else, that's not what Torah wants from us. Yeah, you want to go crazy. In your own personal Judaism. It's great. You want to be very stringent. That's great. not at the expense of someone else. You know, there's an old story, but it's a very good story. The Rebbe Rashab, who was the 5th Chabad Rebbe, he was the second son. His older brother, Zalman Aaron, they grew up together. But Zalman Aaron was older but shorter. The Rebbe Rashab was Shalom Dever, was younger but taller. So one time they're outside playing in the garden, and the Rebbe Rashab says, they were kids. So who's taller? So Rebbe says, I'm taller, right? Because so his older brother Zalman Aaron pushed him down in, like there was a ditch. And he said, now who's taller? So their father, the Rebbe Marash, Shmuel, overheard this whole interaction because it was a garden in the house. He called them in, and he asked the boys, who's taller? So the Rebbe Shab says, I'm taller. Then he told his son, Zalman Aaron, climb on a chair. He said, no, who's taller? So Zalman Aaron said, I'm taller. So he said, this should be a lifelong lesson. When you want to go up, you don't push other people down. You lift yourself up. This is the message. And so we can never put our own luxuries ahead of someone else's necessities. So someone asks calls you for money, and you wanted to go on a cruise. People need money, whatever it is. So I'm sorry, I would give you, but I gotta go on the cruise, right? So the same thing is applied to the beginning. And you want to go to the Torah studies class. You want to learn. This is one of the questions we asked, and you're yanting on the phone. If you have the opportunity to learn with somebody, and it's Tuesday night, 7:30 at the time of the class, you say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, you can't learn, or you tell the rabbi, I love your class, but I need to bring this person closer to Judaism. So it seems like the rabbi would be teaching us. You say text number 10. Says spiritual tragedy, someone else's basic spiritual needs takes priority over our spiritual luxuries. And by the way, this is we just had the conference of Shluchim. I fortunately, because of Bar Mitzvah, didn't go.
It's on tape and you missed it.
Huh?
It's on tape and you missed it, and
Yeah.
you didn't even invite me.
Yeah. So I should have invited you. Would have gone without me. Could have taken my place. But this is the concept of shluchus. This is a very big philosophical debate between the Rebbe and other communities. Other communities said, how can we send our young boys, young couples out into these communities where there's no school, no kosher? What about the education for the kids? What about the kosher? What about their minyan? What about the Jewish environment, the kosher bakery, the Chol Yisrael cheese, right? All that. You need to be in a Jewish community.
And going into an area where Jews are not particularly liked.
Whatever, that too. I'm saying so. The Rebbe said. So you want your Mahadir and Chol Yisrael pistachio ice cream and cookie ice cream. You didn't say these exact words, right? And you're happy that you have your 3 classes a day and your 5. It's a very powerful video. I always think about this video. Rebbe says you're happy you have your shiurim lessons in Torah and your minyanim and your Chol Yisrael milk and your fresh baked bread. But what about the Jew who doesn't have matzah, doesn't have shefer, doesn't have Shabbos? How can you sleep at night? So you're happy that you have all these spiritual luxuries, but the guy is missing the basics. That's got to bother you. This is what the Rebbe says. Learning from Yaakov. Yaakov had to forego his spiritual luxury, so to speak, of him, binding by voluntary by the Torah laws. He can't step on Rachel. So you see text number 10. It says some Jews know nothing of Judaism and require spiritual charity. Someone to teach them the basics. In such circumstances, no one has the right to claim that they can't, because their time would be better utilized studying Torah and praying. Rather, we must judge ourselves. What makes our spiritual devotions more important to others? Than those of our fellow? Is it right for us to worship God at the highest level at the price of refusing other Jews? By the way, there was, I remember there's been times, you see, I announced the pages and everything else. There are times, hey, you're not allowed to talk in the middle of davening. According to the law, if you look inside the Seder, you see you can't talk from point A to point B, right?
But that's in the Siddur.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, really, you shouldn't do this. You really shouldn't do that. Yeah, but the point of the matter is, this is a Jewish educational. You want to do things perfectly, go to Brooklyn. Over there they do things perfectly. But here we educate Jews. Is it exactly perfect the way it should be according to Jewish law? Maybe not, but that's okay. And what to really drive home this point is you see a great story, text 11. So this is about Shimshon Stock. I grew up with this guy. I mean, he was much older than me. This guy, he would collect money for poor families. It's called Chevra Simcha Shabbos V'Yom. I still give money to this. It's a great charity. Gives food for families for Shabbos and Chag. And he was speak like this. That's the way he spoke. And by Farbrengen, he had these, the mail boxes like this, and he covered it with foil. But by the Farbrengens, the Rebbe would speak, and in between there were songs. So by the songs, he would have Farbrengen. It was covered in foil in different pictures, and he would just, like in the concert, people they pass along the body, they pass along the bucket, and people would just throw in money. Yeah, he was the guy, but he didn't grow up religious. He was a wild kid. One time his friend was helping out in the previous Rebbe's house, and he was rushing. The Rebbe said to him, "What are you rushing?" He said, "I don't want to say." Said, "Come on." The Rebbe said, "Come on, tell me. I'm not going to hurt you." Finally, he admitted to the Rebbe. I mean, you think it's crazy, but the Rebbe wasn't the Rebbe yet. He says, "I said, I want to go see a movie." The Rebbe said, "How about you learn with me instead of going to the movie?" Could you imagine getting the opportunity to learn with the Rebbe?
Whoa.
Right? And he said, you see text number 11. He learned with the Rebbe like 6 weeks. And he wasn't that that big intellectual. The Rebbe would just talk to him. The Rebbe would learn the basics of a code of Jewish law. It's basic stuff. And you think about it, in Hasidic tradition, Thursday night is the night you sit and learn the whole night. Get ready for Shabbos. The Rebbe gave up his own learning. You know what the Rebbe could have accomplished on his own? Forget about not only with the story of this kid. Imagine the Rebbe didn't become a Rebbe. Right? Remained a private individual. You know what kind of learning he could have accomplished? Imagine. The Rebbe locked himself in in the Vilna Gaon, for example. How did he achieve such greatness? He locked himself in the room and he learned day and night. You know what? You think the Rebbe would have been any different? But the Rebbe gave up of himself. Why? To help everyone else, and this is something we got to learn. Something we got to learn. You have to go and help another person, and sometimes you get very caught up in yourself. So every once in a while you got to stop, refocus, and analyze yourself. What's right, what's wrong, and take a step from there. You see text 13. You can read the story in text 12 yourself. It's a very nice story. But text 13, you have to know. Where it is? It says the cheshbon daf zayin a cheshbon tzedek. You have to assess yourself honestly. You got to know when you want to do something right. Someone asks you to help them. You want to do something right. You got to analyze. Is it because you really want to do it? Even like the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov students when the wagon turned over, and the students said, "No, we can't help you. We're learning." And the Ukrainian farmer said to them, "Choshish, you can. Nie moshish, you don't want." Right? So the question is, when you're caught up in religious frenzy, fervor, whatever it is it true, or is it because because you just don't want to help another person? So Yaakov, the absolute ultimate Jew, says, "I'm not going to hurt another Jew because I want to become more religious." He's able to sacrifice some of his personal. All right, key points. If a fellow Jew needs our help, we got to help them. We have to make time. Key points. It's good to adopt personal stringencies and commitments, but never at the expense of standing obligations. It's good to push yourself to be pious, righteous, and scholarly, but never at the expense of others. If someone needs our help in basic Judaism, we have to accept, even if we hope to use that time for personal advancements. Sometimes we lack clarity on the right choice to make. However, in the hearts of hearts, because Hashem gave you a neshama, you know what the right thing to do is. To find that truth, we must consult the inner voice and assess our motives positively. That's why every night, before you say Shema, when you say Shema at night, that's the time to look back during the day and say, did I do the right thing or the wrong thing? You can see in text number 12, like Rebbe Marash said, everybody knows you're not fooling God. And you're not fooling anyone else. The only person you're fooling is yourself. So for a fool to fool a fool, big deal. All right. Have a week.
Thank you.